Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Happy Friday. Welcome to The Ron Show. Thank you for listening, whether it's on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com, on demand at ProgressiveVoices.com. And since this is likely my weekend edition show, well, thank you for listening on Progressive Voices via TuneIn or via podcast and at RonShowATL.com. So many ways to listen. We appreciate you for doing that no matter how you do it. Donnell Suggs joins me. He is editor-in-chief at the Atlanta Voice. Been wanting to reach out to you for a couple of days, but I wanted to let the Mets series get out of the way so that...
Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah. Donnell is a New York Mets fan, somehow surviving in the city of Atlanta. I don't know how you do that with all that suckitude you guys usually have going on, but you got the series. You got the one series. All right, congratulations.
It's very hard this time of year, but beating you guys with a football score really helps a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, that was yesterday was crazy. Well, I mean, the Braves are in a weird spot. I feel like a little bit of wind has been knocked out of their sails with Spencer Strider's injury, and I mean, we started a guy named Alan Parsons. No, not Alan Parsons. Alan Winans. I keep wanting to say the Alan Parsons Project. We started a guy named Alan Winans, who is at best like a AAA pitcher, and used to be a Met actually too. And to me, that wasn't putting our best roster out there. We had our backup catcher, our backup to our backup catcher. It's just
right.
The season's starting off a little messy for the Braves right now, so I'm not gonna worry about them too much, but I'm a little concerned. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not gonna cry for you guys at all. So you're asking the wrong guy. You think I care about you guys having third string catchers and random starters who I actually remember as a minor leaguer. So that's funny.
Yeah.
When I saw him out there, I was like, sweet. This guy's terrible.
Oh, yeah, he was. He's absolutely terrible. All right. Well, you got your series, but we'll see how the season goes. It's a 162-game stretch, right?
Amen. Marathon.
Now, I did want to reach out to you, though, because I know you guys lost a member of the Atlanta Voice family, and I wanted to let you speak to that a little bit. President Jim Washington passing away recently, and my condolences to his wife, the founder of the Atlanta Voice, and the Atlanta Voice community and his family as well. Tell us a little bit about Jim Washington.
You're talking about a real newspaper man. Like some people say, they're involved in the media or they're involved in journalism. This guy, even started his own black newspaper in Dallas. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Dallas Weekly, which still exists, and his son Patrick Washington is running it. Oh, cool. So this is someone that put roots down, not just had jobs in it or contributed to it, but started a newspaper and was very influential in what the National Newspaper Publishers Association, NNPA, and NABJ were doing in the early 80s. So we lost the pioneer. When he came on with us, obviously after he married his wife and what have you, which is Janice Ware, he came on and really helped further legitimize the Atlanta Voice in other circles outside of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So again, a personal mentor of mine, the man who pretty much convinced me to take the editor-in-chief position when I was with the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and he told me, we need you. And I don't know if that was obviously in 2022. So, he was off and on with cancer. I don't think he was, I'm not going to try to make this some spiritual thing where he's like, I saw something, but I feel that way sometimes. I'm a Catholic, so we base everything on prayer and feeling and messages from God. And it felt like he was saying, hey man, I don't know how long I'm going to be around, and I want somebody to help my wife run this thing. But either or, we lost a giant, and it was hard. But yesterday's, I apologize, the funeral on Wednesday was beautiful to see that many people come out in his honor, and then also to respect his wife and what they built the last 22 years.
I want to talk a little bit about that. You made this transition, as you mentioned, from the Atlanta Business Chronicle, another print entity for the most part, to the Atlanta Voice. And talk to me about the importance still of print journalism and local journalism, and even a niche journalism as the Atlanta Voice fills, and the importance still in the community for that.
I really believe local journalism in particular. Yeah. We're weekly, so it's once a week you'll see it in print, but obviously online we post fresh stories every day.
Yeah.
But that print piece is so necessary. We have a story on the front page of today's paper about this husband and wife couple, speaking of husband and wife couples, that bought the Sears building over at Stonecrest Mall. For a lot of us that remember of our age, we remember Sears being the Amazon before there was an online. And they bought this building and they put this multifaceted project called Privy, Privi, into this building. That story doesn't get told if it's not the Atlanta Voice. That project has been around about 8-9 months, and yet I'm telling you, I'm in the media and I didn't know it existed until one of my reporters happened to pass by. They went inside and we set it up. We got a photographer. The whole point is local media tells their story. I don't know if anyone else does. That's important. So that print piece in particular, I mean, it's online as well, but that print piece isn't clouded by so many different clicks and websites and whatnot. It's like it's the one thing that comes out on Friday. We drop it off at all the local libraries in Atlanta, not outside of Buckhead, so coming downhill, all the South Side, all the Southwest Atlanta, and then in community centers as well as local bookstores. So those people will pick that up and go, wow, I didn't know Black people owned that. You don't get that story any other way, with all due respect to the other publications and the ones that I used to work for. So that print piece is still very important because there are people who don't look at their cell phone. My mother-in-law doesn't look at her cell phone for news. Mm-hmm. She looks at it for Facebook, from her friends, and then the stuff that we might post, and she'll like our Instagram post. But she gets the newspaper. She has a couple of subscriptions, and the Atlanta Voice is one of them. So she loves reading it that way. So that I think that's still important in the age of digital this, digital that, and Instacart, and Instagram, and Insta everything. Mm. It's still a need to be able to sit down and say, well, let me just take a couple of minutes and read this story that someone investigated and reported on and talked to them about, because Insta everything sometimes isn't always Insta right.
Also, I find it somewhat interesting that the model that you guys employ, where you have a weekly print edition, but you are online 24/7, 365 for folks to read, so you can update at any point in time. When news breaks, you can update there, and through your social media, bring people to your website. I almost wonder if that's sort of the model that I think a lot of the daily print publications should have looked at doing. I mean, I remember having lived in Mobile, Alabama. The Mobile Register was the daily newspaper of record there. It doesn't exist anymore. And a lot of that, I think, came from them trying to maintain a daily business model, whereas they could have realized now in 2024, you don't need to print daily, but you may need to print weekly so that you can have a week wrap of the important stories, but also lend people right back to your website. That seems to be a business model that might actually work for a lot of print original entities.
I really leaned on, because I came from 5-day-a-week papers and 7-day-a-week papers, and then 3 and then 2. Yeah. Then I get this job with the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and they've always printed once a week. And their whole point is this: we have an audience. Mm-hmm. We're just going to serve them. Mm. And they need to have that on their desk on Friday morning, and then Monday morning when someone comes into the waiting room or what have you, the meeting room, the conference room, there's the paper there for you. They're serving an audience. Every day of the week, holding paper wouldn't have served the business audience. They're doing business. They don't have time to read 5, 6, 7 days a week, but they do on Friday when things slow down. Mm. And I believe the weekly model, unless you're the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Washington Post, other than that, let's be honest, no one's reading 7 consecutive days a week. I'm a newspaper reporter. Mm-hmm. It changed my life. This is everything. Outside of my family, there's nothing more important to me than journalism. That said, I don't read a newspaper 7 days a week. I just don't. Yeah. I have too many things to do. We have kids. We have wives. We have businesses. You're on the radio. I'm online. I'm at a conference. You know me. You see the Twitter. I'm everywhere.
You are everywhere.
I am. This is sad. It's really sad. I'm on my way to something right now. It's sad, but I am. And I don't have time to put the paper in my back pocket every day like I did in the 80s and 90s when I was a kid, and I was like obsessed with this. I still am obsessed with it. But I understand now 1 day a week better be the model for a whole lot of people. Mm-hmm. You're paying a lot of money printing these things that are sitting outside someone's house when they get home at 5 o'clock. Guess what they're doing? They're turning on the TV. They're turning on the radio. As a matter of fact, they're listening to their favorite podcast.
There you go. We're with
my podcast when I want.
We're with Donnell Suggs. He's the editor-in-chief at the Atlanta Voice. I wanted to ask you about the passing of O.J. Simpson. And trust me, we've got bigger stories to talk about, but this one sort of fascinates me because I know that we obviously know that O.J. has a complicated past, or had a complicated past. So what is you? I think you have your thumb on the pulse of the African American community. What is the reaction to his passing?
And here's the funny part. I can think back to myself being 17 years old in 1994, doing the chase, and then later on in the very next year, being a freshman in college outside of Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, in the cafeteria when the verdict came over. Mm-hmm. And I was happy, and I'd never met him in my life. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't shake my hand if I introduced myself to him. in 1995. He would have looked at me like, "What do you want, kid? Black kid?" He didn't care. He didn't think that I was like him.
Mm.
But the whole point was, just like people who are MAGA, will never meet Trump, and Trump would walk right past them. We're talking about the image, not necessarily the person. A lot of people are saddened by the passing of O.J. Simpson that really don't have any connection to him at all.
Mm.
And it really is about race, and that's sad. That's wrong. For me and everyone else that feels bad about him, you should be bad because a human being has died of cancer, and that's messed up. And it should stop there. And it's like, it doesn't stop there, though. Because just like the people are making jokes on Twitter saying, "Oh, you got this and got that," and I wouldn't even repeat any of the jokes. And I'm thinking to myself, prostate cancer kills more black people, black men, than anyone.
Mm.
What's funny about that? There's no victory in that.
I do understand where you're coming from. I do understand where you're coming from. The importance of maybe publicizing that cancer screenings are very important. I mean, I just had my colonoscopy earlier this year, and I would encourage anyone, any man over the age of 45, to talk to your doctor about that and make sure that you're doing that. I think there's a lesson to be learned from that. But I also understand why there are those who kind of do the figurative tap dance on the grave too, because there's a lot of pent up feelings for those who are advocates against domestic violence, for example, who just see the trial of the century, as it was coined back then, as it was, and realizing that, I mean, come on, I think we know he got away with, taking the lives of two people. And we could have a larger conversation about how the judicial system in this country has wronged, tens of thousands, if not millions, of African Americans over the years up to that point. But at the end of the day, he was the man who apparently killed two people and got away with it. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to agree that he physically did that day. I don't know, but there's no way these are random. They were not random victims.
Right.
These two people were not random. They lived their whole lives in L.A., in those neighborhoods, and never got into a fist fight.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now, the heads almost get chopped off. So, okay, we get it. The guy is not totally into that. No way. I'm not touching that anymore, especially 40 years later. But we'll do, almost 40 years later.
Yeah.
But we'll do this. We should separate the fact that black people have been treated a certain way in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And he treated those people a certain way. Mm-hmm. Those are two separate things. And of course, they were not in 95 and 94. We were like, that's us. And it was like, it wasn't us. It was an isolated incident, but it wasn't treated as isolated. It was treated as, well, you know what? We got one then. We got one. You got one. You guys get one all the time. And that was really, and I was ignorant that way at 17. I was like, oh my God, yeah, he won. Right. He got off. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. But again, we're all learning. We're all learning that we have to isolate these situations and not pretend that we're all a monolith.
Every day. No, you're right. Absolutely. Which brings me to my next point. We're going to take a quick break and come back. I want to talk about, black voting power in this country and the influence that they wield. And the polling numbers that are coming out seem to show that the Democratic Party and President Joe Biden cannot count on the blank check that I think that they used to could count on in many ways. So I want to talk about that impact as well. You had me thinking about that SNL skit where the news anchors were reading off the stories one by one, where the white anchors and the black anchors were keeping track of who was victimized or who was the guilty party and all that. That's one of my favorite SNL skits of all time. I may have to.
It's really good.
I may have to include that in the show links at ronshowatl.com. We're with Donnell Suggs, who is the editor-in-chief at the Atlanta Voice. You're listening to The Ron Show on the American One Radio app, AmericanOneRadio.com, or wherever you podcast. You can follow The Ron Show on your preferred social media. That would be at RonShowATL, whether it's on the Twitter X platform, Facebook, Instagram. I'm forgetting something here. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. No, that'll work. We're with Donnell Suggs, who is the editor-in-chief at the Atlanta Voice, which can also be found on various social media accounts as well. And, of course, online, you just search for the Atlanta Voice and keep up with their publication. Again, the publication comes out weekly, but you can keep up with the Atlanta Voice at theatlantavoice.com. 7 days a week, 24/7, 365. Donnell, Donald Trump swooped into Atlanta and even stopped at the Chick-fil-A in Vine City. I've been there a few times myself. He stopped in and ordered 30 milkshakes and some chicken. From the outside, I watch this and I go, black people can't be buying this, right? They can't just be getting swept up in this. And yet there actually is some showing here that not only is Donald Trump making some gains within the African American community, but not so much that Republicans are making gains, but Democrats are losing their grip on the African American vote. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I can. One, it's ridiculous that that's even you're 100% right, and it's crazy that someone can look you in the eye, treat you a certain way, maybe not physically treat you, because Donald Trump has not slapped a black person or like burned a cross, but his policies and his rhetoric and people that are associated with him have said we don't care about you at all, and yet there are still some people who go, yeah, but, and that's really crazy because there's so many other demographics that'll be like, no way, I'm supporting this guy. And it's that for some of us, we still like, yeah, but, and that's really crazy. And it says a lot more about the fact that Joe Biden is not authentic to a lot of us. He's just not authentic. He just so happens to be associated directly with Barack Obama, and that helped him a lot, and it still does. And he will be campaigning with him again before this thing is over, and he needs to. I covered him 4 years ago when they were down here in College Park. It was massive. He couldn't even fit the people in the building because Barack Obama brought the people out. So that association has helped him. But a lot of us don't believe that Joe Biden is really authentically on our side. He has a lot of these moments where he'll like sit down with a dad and his sons and have fried chicken. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, dude? Yeah. That doesn't play. Yeah. That's worse.
It reminded me of Hillary with the hot sauce. Remember Hillary with the hot sauce?
The hot sauce she had in her bag. Oh my God.
Cringy.
What are you doing? I'm black. I've been black my whole life. I've never carried hot sauce anywhere. I eat at the Waffle House. It's there.
It's there.
I get there.
Yeah.
I don't bring it there. It's there. What are you talking about? Been married to a black woman for 10 years. She never does that.
Oh my God.
What are you doing? So it's like, it's not authentic. And a lot of us are just like, well, then maybe the alternative is we'll try something else. And unfortunately, right now, for all of us, if something else are these two guys. And you got to take you got to take a stance. You got to take a position with one of them. And it's really scary, the position we're in politically in this country.
And I understand that like a lot of voters, black, white, and otherwise, are just looking at the two options and going, oh, God, I'm not excited about either one. But to see that there is degradation in polling for Joe Biden, and again, you point to the whys, I think, but also the Democratic Party. You know, I point to critics who like to complain about what Democrats have or haven't done for the African American voter, and say, well, first of all, Democrats are almost if they're not the majority, they're a plurality of African American people or voices of color, actually voters of color and politicians of color. So they play a large role here, but also. You can't just look at what one party isn't able to do. You also have to look at why they're unable to do or to deliver on some of the promises they made. And there's an opposition party that we don't speak of in that realm.
It's a weird position that we're in because we don't have the majority. I get that. Well, we actually do because we won the election. I'm talking Democrats now. I'm not black. Democrats at all.
Yeah.
But yet, and as black people. The majority of us are Democratic, so much so that people have to actually show you black Republicans to prove that they're real.
Yeah.
They have to take some. We spoke to 2 black Republicans today.
Oh, God.
It's like, you got to show me them because I got to see them and touch them and make sure they're real. I don't know any personally. I'm sure I do. They just didn't tell me. But I'm telling you, like, I don't. It's weird to have this voting power block that people need. And yet feel like sometimes we're not utilizing it to its fullest potential. Now we did for President Obama in a big way, in a very big way. Now more people voted in this last presidential election than in the history of the country.
True.
So more people voted, more people. My stepdaughter is 19 now. This will be her first presidential election to vote for.
Nice.
She's a new voter.
Nice.
That's another, I'm very excited for her. That's another voter. So more people are voting, which is great. So we need to utilize this power, and we're going to be writing about that a little bit more as it gets a little closer. Because I don't want people to get this information and then 6 months goes by and they forget it. But I want to write some pieces about, hey, we have actual power in this, guys. We can call some shots a little bit if we use this the right way. We can really call this. We called it for Biden the last time. There's no reason why he was a better candidate. The other guy's crazy, I get it, but he was already a sitting president, and he still beat him, and we're the big reason why Biden won. huge.
Yeah, and you bring up Barack Obama, and then I go back to 2016. I hate to bring up Hillary and her hot sauce again, but in 2016 we didn't have a whole lot of enthusiasm for a continuation, essentially, of the Obama presidency. Of course, I think Hillary bungled it. She chose a pro-life vice presidential candidate. How can you find a pro-life vice presidential candidate within the party? She did. That excited no one. And then we had suppressed turnout in 3 key cities in 3 key states, and you see the suppressed turnout in high density black voting areas in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, and Detroit. And we lost those 3 states that those cities are in, and we got Donald Trump.
And that can happen again, by the way.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. No, and to me, that's the warning sign. That's the thing. And I'm not saying that to black voters. I'm saying that to the Democratic Party. I'm saying that to Biden-Harris 2024. Pay attention to this because it can happen all over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe even easier now than before.
Yeah, absolutely, 1,000%. All right. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a quick break. I want to come back and I want you to speak to the Marvin Harrington shout out at the Fulton County Commission in just a couple minutes. The Ron Show here on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com, wherever you podcast.
Broadcasting 5 days a week to make common sense common again. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
Happy weekend to you. Thank you for listening. We were with Donnell Suggs, who is the editor-in-chief at the Atlanta Voice. Man, I appreciate you giving me some time to talk with you today and catch up on all things politics and local issues. We were talking about the Trump visit and polling. We talked earlier about the passing of the publisher of the Atlanta Voice, Jim Washington. I advise you, if you're just now tuning in, you can hear this entire conversation at ronshowetl.com, on demand at progressivevoices.com as well. And we do replay the show 5 to 6 p.m. on America One Radio. So I was listening to WABE earlier this week, and Dulce Sloan was on. And she was talking to the fact that how awesome it is to live in Atlanta and how Atlanta will always be a piece of her life and a part of her heart because it's just one of the few places where, as a black person, you don't have to look around to find black people. That Atlanta's African-American community has achieved so much here that she sort of joked that you can have sheriffs who are corrupt and politicians who are corrupt. And we had a big story break earlier this week with a former CFO finally copping to being guilty for some corruption on his own.
I mentioned that Atlanta is very proud of you and your success. You write a great deal about growing up here. I love your description of Meadow Creek High School and the cast for Cinderella as Shonda Rhimes' dream come true. Do you still feel a strong connection with Atlanta?
Yes. You can't not feel a strong connection. I was just in an interview and I was talking about how, I didn't realize that growing up in Atlanta as a black person, you get a very specific experience because when I talked to black people who grew up in other places, especially ones that grew up north, they didn't grow up seeing the legacy of black excellence, the legacy of black wealth. One of my friends never had a black doctor growing up. They didn't see black lawyers. They didn't see black, it just wasn't very prominent. And to grow up in a city where it's we've had black sheriffs for so long, we have corrupt black sheriffs. We have corrupt black politicians. Because black people are held to such a standard when they get in certain positions that you have to be completely flawless. You have to be just pure as the driven snow, right? And so for us to have black elected officials for so long that they can be corrupt, that's a blessing. Not everywhere can do that. When you grow up somewhere and you can see black people thriving, and then to leave the city, and then to not see that, and then to not even know where the black people are in a city. It's I don't have to see black people every day. I just need to know where we are. I just need to know what we're doing. I just need to know I can be around you. So that's why I always like coming back home. Being in New York and being in LA, I didn't see black people every day. I saw black people at the airport because there's always black people at the airport. But when you leave Atlanta, you have to go to specific places. They're oh, you got to come down here to find the black people. Come down here. Atlanta, you step outside and it is the black people. Yeah, it's always going to be significant because it's something that it's hard to tell black people from Atlanta they can't do something. because we see so many black people doing so many different things.
That's a great thing.
Did you hear that interview yourself? I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that. I just thought
I'm a big fan of the station, so I'll have it on whenever I'm in the car, and I just happen to catch that.
Yeah, Lois Wright just did a great interview with Dulce Sloan. And
very good. Very good.
So I actually wanted to speak a little bit about that, but also what is going on with Marvin Arrington Jr. and the Fulton County Commission. He and Khadijah, I forgot her last name.
Abdul Rahman.
Rahman, yeah. Got into a shouting match over, and I'm surprised that this is what they had a shouting match. Had a shouting match over animal control.
I heard the county attorney very closely. She said there needs to be a contract and it needs to be on the record. A signed letter of intent is in fact a contract. So all we got to do is put it on the record. I just pray no one gets hurt. I just pray no one dies. Right is right and wrong is wrong, but life is life. Life is life. And this isn't about right and wrong. This is about saving lives. We operated without one from January to now. So what's the problem with giving them time to have another council meeting? We had a spring break. We didn't meet last week like we were supposed to. They didn't meet like they were supposed to. They're going to take it up at their next meeting. It's an ordinance. It requires 2 meetings. We got a signed letter of intent. Shut up.
Just come on. Just a minute.
Shut up. I'm talking.
Just a minute.
You're not talking to me.
Shut
You're
up.
not talking to me.
Shut up. I'm talking.
Make me.
I'm talking.
Make me.
I'm talking.
Make me.
It's my
Just a
time.
minute.
Make
It's
me.
my time.
Make me shut up.
It's my time.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm not an advocate for any. Let me squeeze this a little bit and talk about black men and black women for a moment.
Please.
You're yelling and disrespecting a black woman in public.
Yeah.
I'm not a big men shouldn't do it. No man.
I agree.
But in particular with us, I just think it's like, come on, dude. Because you know what? I don't think first of all, Marvin Arrington came up. His father was a legend, absolute legend. And with that said, he knows what position, what this means to be in any particular position of power, even if it is just city council or what have you. I don't like that he did that in public. Telling her to shut up isn't masculine. That doesn't prove that you're making your point. It doesn't prove that you're strong. It's cowardly. So I already had a problem with this going forward, that he told her to shut up. I wouldn't want anyone to tell my wife or my stepdaughter to shut up, or my mother-in-law.
Right.
So I don't like that.
Especially in
So
such
don't
a
do that.
public way, too.
That's what I mean. Right.
I mean,
Not
maybe
on Twitter.
Yeah. Maybe she was talking while it was his time, and that's fine. But like, maybe have a better way to address that than just yelling, "Shut up, shut up."
I mean, shut up. Like, how old are we? If I don't agree with you, I can Ron, excuse me, something like that. But it's like, oh, shut up, and he wouldn't. And the crazy part is, I've never heard him yell at any man that way. So it was a moment. And I'm sure he will apologize in public if he hasn't already. I haven't heard one, but I'm almost certain he apologized to her because he knows what his name and his lineage means in Atlanta.
Yes.
His father was a giant. Speaking of giants that we lost, that was what, last year?
Yep.
That's
That's right.
I just wrote a column about it. I did a thing about his movie. Yes, that was huge. So that was ridiculous, especially like you said, the topic. Like, who cares? Animal control, guys. Calm down.
Now, I mean, I think there's something there. I don't understand ratcheted up emotions at a meeting about this, but I do understand that, like, animal care is important, and we do have an issue now with Fulton County offering animal control services to all of the municipalities in Fulton County, and right now, except for Atlanta, because Atlanta has signed a memorandum of agreement but hasn't signed the contract, and so Fulton County feels like they're on the hook and could be liable for some, damages should something occur. I understand that, but like the Atlanta City Council is on a break, so they can't do any. That was the point he was making. I get that, but I just don't understand shouting at a fellow commissioner or anyone actually like that in such a public forum. I mean, that went viral, and nothing that Fulton County commissioners do ever goes viral.
Very rarely, and it doesn't. And not having like a 2-3 minute video or whatever, a minute and a half, 2 minute video where they're yelling back and forth like that. This looks bad.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, as the editor in chief of the only black newspaper in Atlanta, it looks bad because the majority of the council is black.
Mm-hmm.
So look how we conduct themselves. I work in Gainesville. I work part-time for the paper in Gainesville. They
Mm.
have arguments up there too at
Mm.
city council meetings. They
Mhm.
do. So it's not like this is a one-off,
Mhm.
but it just looks bad because ours goes viral in
Mhm.
Atlanta. It goes viral.
Yeah.
Like everything else in Atlanta goes viral.
Yeah.
You
I'm not gonna lie. Like I follow ATL Scoop and with Georgia follow. I follow all that stuff on Instagram too, and I sometimes find myself explaining to like friends of mine who don't live in Atlanta, like, "Yo, what's going on up there?" And I'm like, "Man, it's just Atlanta, bro. It's just Atlanta. We're different people." And I take ownership of it because I actually kind of understand it.
The people I work with at the Gainesville Times, they go, "Hey, what's going on down there?" Almost like it's another planet. I said, "All you got to do is stay straight for 30 miles, 40 miles. I'll get you right there." It was like, "No, we're good. We want to just tell. When we see you on Friday afternoon, come and tell us what happened. Wow, what's going on?
Oh my
You know?
gosh. Oh my
On
gosh.
planet Atlanta."
Oh my gosh, you're right. So before I let you go, I want to just have a quick little conversation. Let's dive back into sports here just a little bit, and I'm gonna leave your Mets alone because I still think they're gonna suck by the end of the year. But Atlanta Hawks are heading into the playoffs, and
You call that the playoffs? Isn't it called the
the
play-in?
play-in. Yeah, I know. I'm not crazy about it either, but I think there were high expectations for this team with DeJounte Murray coming in, and I like all along when that trade was made, I thought, why did you go get another all-star point guard when you have an all-star point guard? And that to me is like a shot across the bow, a bruise to the ego, and then Trae Young gets injured, and the Hawks actually kind of played pretty decent without him, and now he's back.
They did. They did. They played really well.
Yeah,
They played
considering
really-
they were putting a G League roster out there many nights of the week. I mean, maybe that speaks more to coaching than anything. But I think we were kind of waiting to see if this team was gonna kind of put it together. Does he come back from this injury? Do they put it together? And what do they do in the offseason with both of these point guards?
You have a backcourt, and in the end, especially in this new NBA, it's a backcourt. It's two guards. They just
Yeah.
call them two guards.
Okay.
One is 6'5.5", one is 6'2". They're a backcourt.
Mm.
Still, your question is valid. Your question is valid. What is this team really gonna do? Like, are we just gonna make the play-in every year? And first of all, the way we're playing right now, we won't even get a playing game in Atlanta. It'll be in Chicago.
It'll be in Chicago,
As it
right?
stands right now.
Yeah.
They have 2 more games after the regular season. We really need to win them both. Tonight's in Minnesota. Minnesota's chasing Denver.
That
They
ain't-
can't afford to lose this game.
That ain't gonna
They're
happen.
not giving us this one. That ain't
Mm-mm.
happening.
Mm-mm.
That's not happening. They want to be the number 1 seed in the West.
Yep.
So either way, we're just in position where it's going to look like we'll just kind of be hovering around 9 and 10.
Yep.
And I don't know if another trade, by the way, is going to do it. I don't know what this team needs. I covered this team. I've been covering this team for a decade. Other than that 60-win season, they've always been mid-pack kind of. And even the 60-win season, we knew we were eventually going to bump into Cleveland and LeBron. So
Mhm.
everyone knew that it was going to cap out.
It was over.
Finals.
Yeah.
It was over. And a couple of years ago, playing the Eastern Conference Finals, that was really cool because that came out of left field.
Yep.
That was like, whoa, what's going on?
Mm.
But no one really thought the Hawks going to beat Milwaukee. No, not really. Not if you know NBA. Milwaukee was a better team. So
Yeah.
with that said, we are where we are. And I think Hawks fans should be cool with the fact that the product is solid. The arena's a lot of fun.
It is.
For 41 nights, we have a lot of fun. You have a player like Trae and DeJounte. You have players like that you can root for. There's a lot of other guys. DeAndre Hunter really played well this year. Bogdan Bogdanovic is a lot of fun to watch.
I like Jalen Johnson. There's a lot of potential in him.
I was going to say that. He's not going to get most improved player this year because Kobe, I forget his name in Chicago. He's playing lights out, so he probably should get it.
Mm.
But we have a fun team, and for a long time, if you grew up here, you didn't.
Mm.
You had Dominique and some guys, and then you had some fun, then you didn't for a while. So we have a solid product. Everyone take themselves to Mercedes-Benz Stadium and watch Atlanta United. That's a potential championship team.
Yeah, that's true.
And watch those Braves. As much as I hate to say it, that is they just won a championship a couple years ago. That's a championship team. So watch those teams and just enjoy the Hawks for where they are.
So, but here's my question, and this is the sports fan who just happens to be a white guy asking you now. Why can't the Hawks capitalize on Atlanta being the mecca for African American culture to bring those free agents in to perform that super team that they were able to form at Golden State and at Miami, in recent history? Why can't Atlanta capitalize on that?
And the beauty of those two franchises you just named is they draft really well.
Okay, there's
Don't
that.
forget, Curry, Clay, Draymond Green, Kevin Looney, all Golden State draft picks. Okay, Durant, got it. If you can get Kevin Durant on your roster, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
But the core of that team was all drafted there.
Mm.
Our core is not. Bogdan Bogdanovic is not. DeJounte Murray is not. I mean, Hunter is. Trey is. Capella is not. So when you start looking at the whole, like the guys who are contributing right now, Jalen Johnson is. A lot of the guys are here. There. Atlanta, everyone loves Atlanta, and most of the NBA guys, the black guys, have even a condo here, a property. Everyone loves Atlanta.
They know where to get their wings. They know where to go to they know which clubs to go to.
They
Yeah.
know which clubs to go to. They know where to get a home. They know where to get their haircuts and their cars and their jewelry.
Yeah.
Now, that said, and they have a good time. That said, that doesn't reflect on the franchise. That's the city.
Yeah.
And the franchise, even though we have good ownership, solid ownership, we really do. We really do. I just don't think in an NBA, a guy goes, I'm a free agent. I'm a big name free agent. I want to play for the Hawks. They say, I'm a big name free agent. And after I sign with the Golden State Warriors, I'm going to party in Atlanta.
All right. Well, I wish the franchise could figure out how to capitalize on all that Atlanta offers for these players, but that's that. All right. Donnell Suggs, editor-in-chief of the Atlanta Voice. You were just telling me you've got a lot to do today. This is sort of your off day. The paper's out. It's going to be in the racks this weekend, so I'll let you get to running those personal errands. Thank you so much for joining us on the Ron Show today.
No, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you as always.
All right, so here we are in the home stretch. Thank you for listening, and this is me saying to you, enjoy your weekend. Should be good weather-wise. In fact, we're going to be hitting the 80s on Sunday. I know that because I play softball and hydrate, stretch. So it was yesterday that we learned that the prosecution of current Lieutenant Governor and former fake elector Burt Jones is actually going to go forward, with State Prosecutor Pete Skandalakis announcing that he's going to be the one that leads the investigation into Jones' alleged role in trying to help the former President Donald Trump overturn the 2020 presidential election here in Georgia. He had almost no choice, and the folks at WAGA Fox 5 explain why that is.
Pete Skandalakis made the choice, and his decision himself. Fox 5 team reporter Randy Travis says Skandalakis ran out of other options. Randy.
Right, Courtney and Tom, it's been almost 2 years now since a judge disqualified Fulton DA Fani Willis from including Jones in her election interference investigation. Skandalakis told me he was waiting for the indictment, then waiting to see what happened with Willis and Nathan Wade before picking a special prosecutor for Jones. Today, the wait could last no longer.
Hopefully we'll avoid any of those mishaps in the future.
A sitting Georgia lieutenant governor would likely be under indictment right now, if not for the earlier actions of Fulton County DA Fani Willis. Her decision to host a fundraiser for Democratic lieutenant governor candidate Charlie Bailey, while at the same time investigating his Republican opponent Burt Jones, was too much for the judge overseeing the special purpose grand jury.
It's a what are you thinking moment. The optics are horrific.
That special purpose grand jury eventually recommended indictments against a long list of people, including Jones, who served as a so-called fake elector following the 2020 election. But by then, Willis was disqualified from including the now lieutenant governor in her case. On election night 2022, Jones told us he wasn't worried.
We won our court case with Fulton County. Judge ruled in our favor.
The job to find a replacement prosecutor fell to Pete Skandalakis, the executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. He struggled to find anyone who would take such a highly political case. So in the end, Skandalakis chose himself. No word on his timeline. Jones said in a written statement, "I'm happy to see this process move forward and look forward to the opportunity to get this charade behind me. Fani Willis has made a mockery of this legal process, as she tends to do."
Okay, bringing Fani up at this point has no bearing on the case because she's not the prosecutor in charge of Burt Jones' case. So why bring her up other than just to lob some red meat at the base here? That's politicizing, sort of muddying the waters, Mr. Jones, but let's let the story roll on.
I look forward to a quick resolution and moving forward with the business of the state of Georgia. I'm told the other difficulty Skandalakis faced in finding a special prosecutor is by statute, he's only allowed to pay that person $58 an hour with no money set aside by the General Assembly for other staff or expenses. In fact, that money is so small, Courtney and Tom, that when Danny Porter was appointed special prosecutor for the Rayshard Brooks case, he didn't even want to fill out the paperwork. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So he just did it for free.
It's a lot of work. Who would want it?
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't look like he wanted to be the person, but it seems like he was left with no other choice.
He was left with, he tried lied. I think he asked around, but it's a politically sensitive case, and it's really hard to find the finances to do a proper investigation. So it'll be interesting to see what money Skandalakis can access for expert witnesses, to bring in other witnesses, to hire staff perhaps to look into this case, because he has to start and do it just like Fani Willis did for the other 19 people she's indicted.
Yeah.
So let's also point this out. The very reason that Pete Skandalakis has had a hard time finding someone to prosecute this case other than himself is the fact that the pay is, only, this is sad, $58 an hour. Only $58 an hour. Only a 40-hour work week of $2,300. Only an annual salary of like $120,000. Oh, he'll have to cut back. He'll have to budget. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not making light of the fact that, lawyers look at $58 an hour and go, that's hardly worth filling out the paperwork, as you heard in the story. Really? I'm sorry, $58 an hour is worth this person to fill. I will fill out paperwork for $58 an hour. Tell me that I'm going to make an average of $2,300 a week. Yes, I'll fill that paperwork. I do it for a lot less as a real estate agent, as a realtor. I fill out paperwork for a lot less. But also remember that one of the reasons that Fani Willis and her office claims that they went with Nathan Wade was because he too took the special prosecutor's job, despite the fact that it didn't pay very much. In fact, we had on the record, literally under oath in court, a former governor of the state say that he refused the job because it didn't pay him enough to deal with all of the paperwork, all of the work that was going to be involved to be in the public spotlight in a way that he no longer sought to be. Also, yesterday, we learned that Mayor Andre Dickens, remember a couple weeks ago, State of the City address, he announced that there were going to be 4 new infill MARTA rail stations. We knew one was going to be at Murphy Crossing. Riley Bunch at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporting yesterday that when Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens announced in March he intended to build 4 new infill MARTA stations, the news came without naming where a majority of them would be placed around the city. Thursday, the mayor announced the remaining 3 locations. Krog Street Wholesale Yard, which is a no-brainer. Great idea. Also, Joseph E. Boone and Armour Yards. Armour Yards makes a lot of sense, too, for those of you who take the north route up to the North Spring Station. That'll connect after Midtown and before Buckhead. That's going to be a pretty strong location. Heck, I may even use that because I go to lunch up there at Wolf's on Fridays. Where else? The announcement came through an administrative order outlining the ambitious partnership between the City Atlanta Beltline Incorporated and MARTA. Also, he announced a bus rapid transit, a BRT line that would connect essentially Bowen Homes, or from Bowen Homes on Atlanta's west side to Ponce City Market. That'll be a dedicated bus route that will essentially follow along Hollowell Parkway and connecting at North Avenue to connect those 2 sides of the city with that dedicated BRT line. Back to Riley Bunch's article, because this is where the controversy really got started when he made the announcement of the infill stations. What isn't described in detail is how the city is going to pay for the new stations or a timeline for kicking off construction. The order directs city officials to identify potential funding sources, including local, state, it's a first, and private revenue options. It also calls for a community engagement effort to make sure the new transportation projects fit into the landscape of Atlanta's existing neighborhoods. Debate around whether the city should move forward with longstanding plans to install rail along the city's iconic Beltline ramped up ahead of the mayor's State of the City address. Rumors swirled about whether Dickens would scrap or back the idea of mass transit along the pedestrian corridor. MARTA officials had to come in, remember now, and tell Atlanta City Council members in March that the new infill stations aren't going to replace plans to extend the East Side Streetcar, a $230 million project that's seen as the first step in plans to install light rail along the Beltline. The administrative order doesn't shed much light on whether rail plans will continue, but does directly call for continued conversations around the idea. The quote, "I am hereby directing the CEO to work in partnership with the Atlanta Beltline, Inc. to engage MARTA to develop a plan for mobility and transit options on the entirety of the Beltline." So there's that. I'll include that in today's show notes at ronshowatl.com. And that is going to put a wrap for the show today and for the week. Thank you so much for listening, whether it's on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com, whether you listen on demand at ProgressiveVoices.com, or you're listening over the weekend on TuneIn with Progressive Voices. Show notes for all of my shows this week at ronchoatl.com. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.